Today, we're going to talk about one of the most common but least talked about financial traps in our African context. I'm going to be a little bit real. I'm going to be a lot of it personal. And this might get a little uncomfortable, but it's an extremely important concept to discuss. Let me get right into it, because I want to talk with you today about something most of us have felt, but very few of us have put clearly into words. And that is that in our cultures, in our families, in our African setup, saying no to family does not necessarily just feel difficult. It can feel outright wrong, unimaginable. But what if that instinct to always say yes to your family when they have financial needs that they'd like you to fulfill? What if that's holding you back financially? What if that's part of the reason why you can't succeed? Now, this conversation isn't about me telling you that you shouldn't support your families. That's not what this is about. Helping isn't the issue. It's not the problem. The problem is helping without a plan, without a structure to inform how you conduct your help. When generosity has no plan, no framework, no structure, it becomes reactive. When somebody near and dear to you has a problem and they bring that problem to you, you react to it and start dealing with people's problems as they come. And your money can only serve while it lasts. Unfortunately, this approach will eventually start to compete with your own survival. If this is your first time listening to the Money Blueprint podcast, I'm your host, Isaac Nkusi, a personal finance architect. And I've spent over a decade helping high-earning professionals and business people give structure to the way they spend and grow their money. People I've worked with over the years, they haven't failed with their money, or they're not failing with their money because of their income levels. I've worked with professionals and business owners that earn wildly different amounts of money each month. Some really relatable, a few equivalent of a few $1,000s to a few $100s a month, and others thousands and tens of thousands equivalent. But it's not their income level that's causing their financial stress. They're failing with their money because they have too many people with a claim on what they do with their money. So the question is, how do you support your clansmen, your people, without sacrificing your future? How can you participate in our Ubuntu culture across most of African nations without compromising your ability to survive in the future? The problem is generosity without structure. All right, let me tell you what I mean. I have this friend. He's actually like a long distance family member. He's the last born in his family. He's the first to finish university, and he's the first to build a real business. I think he's like the seventh born or eighth born in his family, but the first to finish school and the first to start a business. He's also the one of his siblings that his whole family puts all their hopes and trust for their future in. He's a pride of his mother. He's from the northern part of the country, and whenever he visits home, his mother will sing his praises to anyone who will listen about how well he did in school, the scholarships that he got to get through school. He wasn't a financial burden. His education wasn't costly to his parents because he got all these scholarship opportunities. Such a hard student, such a diligent young person, even at an early age. And so keenly aware, even in primary and high school, about how much it cost his family. Their survival, their day-to-day living was really costly, and their means were meager. He comes from a very humble background. Now, because his mother would speak about him to anyone who'd listen. In our culture, that can travel quite quickly and quite far. This friend of mine, who now is done with school and began his successful business, frequently visits his mother back in their village. And a dream that he's had for very many years, since high school actually, was he wanted to build a home. If he ever got the means to do so, he wanted to build a home for his mother down in the valley, close to the market and to the river, so that she wouldn't have to trek up and down the hill every time she had to come to transact in town and come to collect water. So his dream for her was that he was going to come and build her a home in the valley. If he ever had the means, if he ever got the money to do it, he would do it. What happens in our context is because his mother was talking, all singing, all praises about how well he was doing and how successful he was, everybody would gather around when he'd come and visit. And of course, Africans, we don't go home to visit our parents or to visit our clansmen empty handed. You come with gifts and you come with tokens of appreciation for what people did for you to achieve what you have. In the beginning, as he would visit his mother, more and more family members, and I say family members with inverted commas, right? Their extended family members, not just his siblings and cousins, but extended family members, people who are friends of the family, friends of his parents, would begin to bring financial concerns to him and to his mother. At first, it was mostly immediate family. And for most immediate urgencies like school fees, medical bills, basic needs. But over time, this began to expand. The requests multiplied. More extended families started showing up. More of them with core, deep need in their family, a story to tell, a real problem to address. And these aren't strangers, really. These are familiar people, people that he would recognize for the most part, or at least people that his mother could explain the relationship to him. Now, this began to become a conflict for my friend because he had a dream to build a home for his mother. And he began the project by identifying some land and buying it, and then starting to acquire some materials for the development, as well as the architectural drawings for the house. He wanted to build something cozy, something relatable for what his mother needed and where she was living, but also something she could feel comfortable in. And she wouldn't have to toil so much from the strategic location of her new home. This was in his mind. But the conflict arose when more and more and more of his family members, his clansmen, started requesting more and more of him. It came to the point over a few months, close to a year into the project development of his mother's house, that this friend of mine had to put a stop on his mother's development just to feed the needs of and obligations of his extended family members. It got so bad that he started eating one meal a day to accommodate the financial burden of his extended family members' needs. He was eating one meal a day. From the outside, he looked successful, but internally, his life was under constant pressure. So much demand, so much immediate need. And these weren't just requests for a little spending money. This was requests for deep needs, school fees, medical bills, projects that were stalled, debts that needed to be paid, things that needed immediate attention. They were urgent, each case. So his life was under constant pressure. He wasn't just managing his money, and this isn't just a money management concern. At this point, eating one meal a day, dealing with all the urgent needs of his extended family members back at home, he was now managing guilt. Now, what my friend was experiencing, it has a name. It's called black tax. It's the financial responsibility placed on those who succeed first, like parents, firstborn siblings, extended family members, the older ones, the community around you, the networks that you have who have succeeded first. In our African contexts, this family financial responsibility is not optional. It's expected, and it's how many families survive. So there's an element of dignity in that. Black tax becomes dangerous when it operates outside of structure. The moment you make it, air quote, the moment you become financially successful, at least in the eyes of your extended family members, you've signaled that you have capacity to solve problems. When that happens, their requests follow. Not from a place of your family members trying to exploit you, but from a place of genuine need and genuine belief that you can help them because you've succeeded. There is no clear boundary between immediate responsibility of you and your immediate family and the extended responsibility of your clansmen. Everything feels equally urgent. And my friend felt this keenly for an extended period of time. He started to lose weight. He started to look like he was aging because he was under this constant pressure to take on responsibilities of extended family members. And again, this isn't a bad thing. But the problem comes in when there is no containment mechanism to help you measure how much help you can afford to give your family members, despite how urgent and how significant the need is. Without a system, every request is a fresh decision made under pressure, under guilt, under feelings of empathy, and with the feeling that your reputation, your family name, is also on the line if you don't fulfill your obligations to your extended family members. They're going to start talking about you. Your reputation is going to fail, and there are social consequences to that kind of failure. But the problem here is that money is leaving your accounts, it's leaving your pocket unpredictably. So you can't plan. You can't commit to getting things done like his mother's home. And you can't build momentum. You can't take a step at a time and keep moving forward because your money is leaving you unpredictably. In other contexts, in other social spaces, in other cultures, lifestyle inflation means that you're buying a bigger car when you get a bigger salary. You're moving to a nicer house. You're owning nicer gadgets as your income rises. But in our African context, lifestyle inflation looks like social obligation expanding with every income increase. The more you earn, the more people depend on you. Your income grows, but your available income, the money that you keep, never grows. As long as there's money available, there will be an emergency to consume it. Here's a shocking statistic from a South African context. Research on black tax states that 70% of working black professionals in South Africa currently experience or expect to experience black tax, a percentage of their income being drawn away by their family members' needs because their needs are urgent. Supporting extended family members consistently delays the giver's ability to save, invest, purchase assets, or build any kind of momentum. What this means is that you're directly funding somebody else's present needs. at the cost of your future success, at the cost of your own financial future. The burden of sharing your income significantly reduces your capacity to save and invest toward retirement or build any capital to do anything. I have another family member, extended family member, who has been supporting her husband's family and her family since they got married for the last, I want to say, the better part of 35 years. They have helped build a home for her parents. They've helped build a home for her husband's parents. They have put a number of their nephews and nieces through university, high school and university. They have funded businesses for their family members. They have handled financial crises in terms of debt for their family members, but they don't own their own home. After 35 years, they don't own their own home. And they've had a very successful financial life. They've earned very well and they've managed to save a lot, but all their savings has gone to serve the urgent needs of their extended family members. And I get it. Some of these needs are quite truly urgent. They're crises. And if you don't step in or step in as a family, these crises can have devastating effects on the people that are under threat directly and also to the extended family. And for those of us who are collectivist cultures, the family name can also be significantly damaged, which is important and honorable to consider. But there is this lingering regret in this family member of mine who feels like she doesn't have a home because she's been supporting everybody in her own family and in her in-laws' family. And they don't have a home. They don't have much of assets to speak of. I know you've seen this. You've probably lived it yourself. This is how someone can earn very well for 10, 15, 20 plus years and still feel in their 40s and 50s and even older that they're starting from zero. They're starting from nothing. Grown children, needs met in the extended family, but the giver feels like they have nothing of their own to show for all the work that they have done over their career. So if this is the reality, what do people actually do? From what I've seen, most people fall into one of three paths. And I'm going to share with you what happened with my friend and his mother's house. The first path is you give as much as you can. And sometimes you give a little bit more than what you can. You tell yourself, these are my people. If I don't help, who will? And one day they'll return the favor if I need them. Now, let's be fair. Many times this is true. Genuinely, people who you help remember the help you gave them and reciprocate. They're there for you when you need them, assuming that they're in a position to support you. But let's also be very honest about this. When you're in need, after supporting the clan, there's no guarantee that they're ready to support you back. In fact, there's a possibility that the more you help your extended family members, the more you are seen as the solution provider. And that means that people don't think about helping you solve your problems because you are the general solution. You are the person they go to get help, not the person they give help to. And there's no guarantee that the time you're in crisis, those you've been supporting over the years will be stable enough to support you as well. So, this first path is the hill that you die on. I am going to help. These are my people. Whatever it takes, I'm going to be there for them because either I have it or I can get it. You die in your own movie, as they say. Over time, as well, along this path, your investments will likely stall and your ability to take risks disappear because you don't have funds to invest in your goals, in your financial future. So, ultimately, you become financially responsible for everyone except yourself. The second path is total withdrawal. Abandon the system. Some people see this pattern early and then go in the complete opposite direction. I work for my money. I don't owe anyone except myself and maybe those who paid my school fees. From a financial position, this can work. If you keep your income, you can build your assets faster. You can remove yourself from financial pressure if you avoid addressing the needs of the extended family. But let's be honest here as well. There is a potential cost. In our African Ubuntu context, success is social. I am because we are. You withdrawing from your community creates a real distance, a possible resentment from those who would look to you for support. So the loss, the potential risk shows up later, right after you've made this decision, at your family events, when you're in a moment of crisis, how people talk about you when you're not there behind your back. These are social costs that sometimes you're willing to accept. This path can build financial wealth, but it also comes at a different kind of pressure because you're paying a social bill, a community cost. The third path, one that I'm seeing that most people don't talk about, is the hardest path. In this third path, you decide, I'm going to help, but I'm not going to help at the expense of my future and those who depend on me in my immediate family. This path is intentional giving, not emotional. You decide how much, to who, when, and when you stop giving. But there is built-in discomfort. You will have to say no at some point. Not because you don't care, but because you have to live within a structure. You have given yourself a framework in which to manage your money. People won't always understand your decision. Sometimes people will say that you're different, you've changed. And maybe you really have, because you are not reactive with your money, you are purposeful. Your identity has shifted from reacting to pressure to managing your responsibilities and the responsibilities of others according to your own priorities. One path keeps you generous, but drains your future. Another path protects your future, but it isolates you from your people. The third path forces you to carry both responsibility and resistance to pressure at the same time. And that is the real trade-off. None of these paths are free. None of them are perfect. You're going to have to give up something in order to achieve something, just like your money. So when my friend reached this point, this 1 meal a day, heavy guilt, house project. So when my friend reached that point, that 1 meal a day point, that heavy familial guilt for not being everybody's savior, his mother's house project on hold, he had to choose not just what kind of person he wanted to be, but also what kind of life he was willing to build and what he was not willing to live with. So the decision moment, it wasn't a dramatic one. It was quiet. He made a decision inside himself, very internal. even though it was a heavy decision and he knew consequences were coming. But he said to himself, if I continue living the way I'm living, trying to help everyone, trying to be everybody's solution, I'm not going to help anyone. I will not save all my clan members, and I will not build anything for myself or my mother. So his solution was he set a limit. A monthly giving budget of 500,000 francs at the time was about $400 worth. Still a very big portion of his monthly income, showing his commitment to his community. But he was going to receive requests when his clan members asked him for support. He was going to evaluate each request based on what he understood the importance and urgency was. He was going to give either full support, some support, or just say no, depending on what the request was and what it was for. When the $400 equivalent was spent giving out to family members, it was finished. That's it. No exceptions, no extensions, no breaking the structure under pressure. And that was his rule. Of course, the immediate consequence was that his mother's house project started moving again. And he finished it. Progress returned. The longer term impacts were mixed. So his mind became a little bit quieter, even if some of his family members, extended family members, were upset with him for not meeting all the requests that he had been given. But his mind became a bit more quiet. His stress and pressure levels dropped significantly. For the first time, he was not making financial decisions under pressure. He had decided before the crisis arrived, the external crisis from clans members arrived. And this is how we protect ourselves from financial pressure. Make a decision in advance of the problem. When this situation arrives, what am I going to do? When somebody asks me, what is my process for giving? When somebody asks me, what is my criteria to say no? When the money is over, when the money is spent, what am I going to say? What are my priorities beyond giving other people money when they ask for it? And how will I deal when somebody tells me, I thought you were a generous person, but you're stingy? Despite all the giving that you do, all the caring that you have for your family members, for those around you, somebody will always be discontent. What will you do in that situation? The decision needs to be made beforehand. Here's an emotional cost. His structure created friction, like I've just described, and he felt that friction with some of his family members. Other people noticed the change he was making. Some understood and some didn't. Some felt that he had, become bougie. He'd become extra. He was now too good for them. But he had to sit with that. He had to accept that. The discomfort of disappointing people he cared about became real. And the real cost wasn't only financial, but it was the weight of saying no to people who you love or who your family members hold deeply. Doing the right things financially, it can feel like doing the wrong things socially. This is a reality that's unavoidable. But you have to pick, again, the hill that you're willing to die on. This friend of mine stopped seeing himself as the one who must respond to every request, and he started seeing himself as the one responsible for managing a limited resource wisely. That's not selfish. That's being a good steward, a good protector, a good provider. It's being measured and intentional. The 500,000 or $400 figure was a real amount of money. It was very specific. It was a significant portion of his income. It wasn't just a small gesture. It was a structured, applied support to the people in his family, extended members of his clan who needed his support, without breaking the structure that's providing for his future and for his mother's home. So if that's the path, what does responsible giving actually look like in practice? How do you build a system that allows you to support your extended family members, your clansmen, without losing yourself in the process? Most people try to manage every request as it comes. What they actually need to do is manage their system. Every time a request comes in from your family, without a pre-existing structure deciding how you deal with requests, you're making a high-pressure financial decision in real time, under guilt, under emotion, under stress, under threat. And that is exhausting. But worse, it never ends. Your giving decision, if made in advance, not in the moment, will help you overcome this constant pressure. You sit down, you decide what portion of your income you're going to set aside for your family support. And that is the boundary, the hill that you're willing to die on. You're willing to take consequence because you've measured what you can afford to do realistically, managing both others' expectations and your own obligations. When you separate generosity from survival, your giving is no longer competing with your future. If supporting others is delaying your investments, stalling your ability to save for emergencies, or putting you into survival mode constantly every day trying to meet the obligations of the day, you're not generous. You're wasteful. It's self-sacrifice without sustainability. If you just give without a plan, you're sacrificing without sustainability. And that will always collapse. Eventually, you're going to be the one who needs to rely on others for support. Structure will cost you approval. It will cost you comfort in some circumstances. And sometimes it might even cost you relationships. Relationships that are existing primarily to rely on you. Those relationships might fade away. Some people will not understand your boundary because your structure interrupts their expectations of you. You're not responsible for maintaining a system that destroys your future. You're responsible for managing your resources in a way that is sustainable over your lifetime and repeatable in the generations that are watching you, your children and your grandchildren. So let's bring it all together. Successful money managers define their limit when it comes to giving. They commit to their limit. They're serious about their boundaries. They accept the tension that comes from having boundaries because there is going to be social consequence. It's not easy, but it is simple. And over time, it will change everything. You stop being seen as, and maybe even seeing yourself as, the person who must say yes. You become the person who manages responsibility with purpose and with intention. That's a different level of control. And it's the only version of giving that's actually sustainable, that you can keep implementing over time. So if you can get this right, you don't just avoid financial pressure. You give yourself a real chance to build something that lasts. My friend finished his mother's house after a few years. Not because he stopped caring about his people, but because he stopped letting his feelings operate without a structure. He still gives to this day, every month, as far as I know. He gives on a plan, it's intentional and structured. He has a budget that governs how he uses his money month on month, whether it is with his extended family, with his wife and his kids now. He has a structure that is decided with an intention and purpose. It's not decided for him by the next request that comes through from somebody close to him or close to people who are close to him. His mother's in her house. She's in the valley. She's closer to the river. She's closer to the market. She loves her home. And the dream he had since he was a child has become a reality. It's a real sense of completion, a sense of pride that he was able to accomplish this for his mother. So what's the lesson we can take away? Again, for successful money managers, it isn't the money that made this possible. It was decision to become structured. That decision costs something. Some people won't understand it. Some people won't like you for it. Some will feel the change before they understand the reason. And the truth of the matter is, some people just won't understand because you've interfered with what they expected you to do for them. But your financial future can't be held hostage by other people's expectations. I mean, it really just, you can't. It's unsustainable. And the sooner you accept that truth, the sooner you can actually start building something that will last beyond you. And interestingly enough, the things that you actually build, those are the things that can support your family and extended family over time. Assets, not your income. So the question I want to leave with you today is not how much should I give? The question is, have I decided? Because reactive giving is not generosity, even if it feels like it. It's the absence of a strong decision framework. When you decide, you stop being managed by other people's obligation and you start managing your life with intentionality. All right, so we have a few questions that have come in through our socials and our email address, and my producer here is going to read them out for me to address.
We have our first question from Aisha, 34, living in Kampala. I only started thinking seriously about saving 2 years ago. Before that, I was just surviving and helping family. Now I feel like I'm behind everyone: investments, retirement, and property. Is it too late to catch up, and how do I stop comparing myself?
So my response to Aisha would be, first of all, you have to stop comparing yourself to others. There's a common saying that comparison is the thief of joy. So don't compare yourself, primarily because you don't know what you're seeing from others that you're comparing yourself with is real. You don't know if it's true. And so we can spend a lot of energy trying to catch up, so to speak, with people who aren't even really where it looks like they are, or you don't know what they've had to go through to achieve what they've achieved. So comparison is a non-starter. It should be a non-starter. Don't compare yourself to others. I know how counterintuitive that sounds in our modern world, where Instagram and social media define almost what our lifestyles should be at certain points in life, or what everybody else is enjoying at different points in life. But it's not real. That's a thing that most of us just don't see. These social media lifestyles, they're not real for the most part. And if we continue to compare ourselves to what other people are doing, or what we can see is not real on social media, then we're going to just not be satisfied with what we have, which is the saddest part of the equation. You have so much, but you can't see what you have because you're comparing yourself to someone who looks, not who is, but who looks like they have more. So that was the first thing. The other thing I'd love to share is a quote from an author that I deeply admire called Jeff Olson. He wrote the book The Slight Edge. In it, he says that when it comes to changing the trajectory of your life, it's never too late to start. So you can get started at any point in life. It's never too late to start, but it's always too late to wait. That's his quote. So you can't afford to, to delay. Delaying is the greatest expense that you cannot repay. But that shouldn't make you feel that where you are right now is an inadequate time to begin doing something new. Because you now have time to structure how you use your money. You can organize how much you save, how much you give, how much you spend for your present needs, how much you invest. You can decide where to put that money. And you can decide to build these habits, not only for your own benefit, your own financial health, but also for all those who are watching you. Because habits are built internally, and those who are watching us, our children and grandchildren, those ones are learning from us. So, what cultures are you building in your family for their continued success, even beyond you? It's never too late to start, but you cannot afford to wait. Every moment you wait, knowing what you should do, is money and assets left on the table, foregone, because you delayed. So, start. Your time is now, Aisha, but do not delay.
Second question from Brian, 31, and living in Kigali. I'm the firstborn and my parents depend on me financially. School fees, medical bills, emergencies, it's always something. I want to invest and build something for myself, but I also feel guilty saying no. How do you balance responsibility and personal growth?
I like the second question from Brian. It ties in perfectly to what we've been discussing today. It's a great question, and it's also a reality that many firstborns live with. They have this guilt if they succeed, or if they've achieved some level of success, that they are responsible for the rest of the family because of the firstborn. Now, some of that holds true. It is a reality that you are first in line, and so you are ahead of everybody else. But herein describes the issue of unstructured spending. What Brian is dealing with is the guilt of wanting to build something for his own future, for the future of his immediate family, his wife and kids at some point. That is competing with the current needs of his extended family, his siblings, his parents, maybe even more extended than that. If Brian doesn't structure how much he's going to set aside for his family, he needs to be able to live inside his income, Brian. Otherwise, helping other people is just a ticking time bomb, because Brian is not taking care of what he needs to take care of. He's not taking care of himself. He's not taking care of his immediate family. So he's not going to be able to support his extended family for long if he doesn't live inside his means. So number one, whatever he's earning, his life and his support to extended family needs to exist within his income. That's number one. If he has any debts, he needs to take care of those debts, because that money isn't his. If he has immediate needs, which we all do, like paying for his rent, paying his kids' school fees, paying his needs budget, he has to take care of that. Saving some money for emergencies, saving to invest, those all exist within needs. And the general rule of thumb is that when you're paying your rent or your mortgage, it's inside 30% of your income in order for your rent expense to be sustainable. But there are other things he has to pay for in order for him and his family to survive. And if his extended family are relying on him, he has to survive first, of course. So he needs to have those in order. Money taken care of for debts, knowing that he has to live inside his income, amount of money set aside for his needs, like his housing cost, his transport costs to and back from work, his communication costs, his emergencies, his saving and investment funds, food at home, electricity, water. These things need to be managed. Now, what's remaining may be an amount of money that would be set aside for having fun with his wife or with his kids, with his family, going on holidays. Some of that money is going to be held back in order for him to support his extended family members. That could be an additional 5, 10, 15% of his income as well, depending on how much he's earning and how much of his monthly income is spent on what he needs. Because if you follow this structure with your money, first of all, you know you're not going to run out. You're not going to put yourself in a crisis, Brian, in order to support your family by overextending how much money you spend on your day to day life. And you're going to be around, you're going to be building something that can sustain you and potentially people who rely on you because you have assets that are coming from your investing and from your emergency funds. So that's how I'd say Brian can deal with this balance between providing for himself and his family, his immediate family, and then providing for his needs of extended family, as we discussed in this episode.
Last question from Peter, 40 and living in Kigali. I changed careers recently and had to start from scratch financially. Watching younger colleagues already investing makes me feel insecure. How do you rebuild wealth later in life without shame?
Peter's question ties in a little bit with what Aisha started with in this Q&A session. This issue of starting late, feeling behind, like you're behind people that are younger than you, people that are around you, comparing. I'd say the same thing to Peter with his question about how do I start at age 40? Yes, I'm later in life. How can I progress with my finances without feeling a sense of shame or a sense that I've been reckless with my money because I started my career over or because life happened? The reality is, again, you start where you are. All of us run into life happening, right? The question is, what are you going to do now? Are you going to structure yourself now, or are you going to continue operating your money emotionally without a plan, without a structure, without a firm decision framework? If that's the case, then in 10 years from now, you'll feel very similar than you feel today at 50, because more of your life has passed and you don't have a system that you use to control what you have and also start growing it strategically for retirement, for your kids, for your legacy, for whatever other concerns you have, financially speaking. So the first thing is to realize from a mental space, from a mindset, mind shift point of view, is that you cannot compare yourself to others constructively. You can't leave your money to deal with life emotionally. It should be organized. We don't build buildings with emotions. We build buildings with structure, with an architectural plan, with best practice, with the right materials in the right places, order. And that's how you build your finances as well. You build it with order. The longer you keep feeling bad for yourself, feeling sorry for yourself, feeling that life has happened to you and it's out of your control, the longer it's going to stay out of control. Ultimately, your choice to say from today, Peter, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to organize my money this way. I'm going to structure it this way. I'm going to invest it this way so that by the time I'm 50 or 60 or whatever age, I'll have certain assets in place that can care for me and for my family based on where I am right now and what I have to invest. That's the best you can do. And I think that's the best advice anyone can ask for. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that today's conversation has given you some of the tools that you need to create the life you want with your money. If you have any questions you'd also like answered, feel free to send them to our email, themoneyblueprintpodcast@gmail.com. You can also reach out to us on our social media platforms. Have a great week.
This podcast is for general informational and educational purposes only, and does not provide financial, investment, legal, or tax advice. Do not make decisions before consulting a qualified professional. This podcast is brought to you by LF Media, home of great African podcasts.